That's definitely changed my life. I think the first ceremony was full of suffering for me. I really just went straight into like all my fears. Literally, the ceremony begins. I take the ayahuasca, I lie down, and I start hearing a giant mosquito buzzing around my head, and I'm like, ah, fuck's sake, this is how it's going to be. And then the mosquito goes
Okay.
my head, and I can hear it
Yeah.
buzzing around in my brain. And there's a feeling that I have of like this mosquito will never stop buzzing in my head. It will get louder and louder until I either go insane or until I learn to let go. Traditions, including in the West, before things maybe got a bit dystopian capitalist, where you would have these rites of passage, these teachings that would remind you, hey, like, there is a part of you that is enough and that is always enough.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of Who on Earth. And this is the first one where someone from out of the blue just got in touch. They liked the show. I think someone from the team had seen a few episodes and thought this would be great to get you on. So I had a little call because obviously stranger danger. We had to make sure they weren't some nefarious criminal mastermind. They weren't. Seemed like a lovely fella. And that fella was Harry Verma. Now, Harry's the founder of Innate Experiences, and they do like gatherings, co-livings, retreat spaces. I think a lot of them are over Portugal, and we're talking things like your meditation, your music, your yoga, getting in touch with nature, that sort of good stuff. And it all came to him one day when he just felt that he wasn't living in purpose. Why did he feel that way? Well, he sat with one of the master medicines. You know how those cheeky devils are. Ayahuasca showed him this is not the way forward, and all was illuminated, and it was Innate Experiences. So Harry's going to talk about himself, his own journey, and Innate's going to come out naturally for that. Before we go into the episode, any likes, we more than appreciated. If you want to share it to a friend, even throw us a comment, let us know what you thought of the episode. More than appreciated. And before I take you to the Transmute sponsor that we're going to have a little advert for, how about a little moment just for the 10-day beginners course that I've released. So this is a 10-day beginners meditation course, whether you're new or you're wanting to polish up. This is how we can have a strong foundation to build everything else from. Don't worry about those dreams that we're wanting to manifest in 2025. Let's get the place they're coming from in the first place. Let's get it fueled up, right? So, 10-day beginners course is available. Go down to the website meditationwithmichael.co.uk to find that out. Otherwise, guys, here's a few words about our sponsors, Transmute Studio. It's a new season, but it's the same old sponsor, and that's Transmute Studio. Beautiful centre in the centre of Manchester, Northern Quarter. It's got loads of the old stuff like the African drumming, the African dance classes. They've got salsa now as well. They've got the beautiful Arignani, ceremonial ecstatic dance with wizardry from the show, but also my alter ego DJ Moksha has made an appearance with his new ecstatic dance, Liberation. So, sound baths, Kundalini yoga, candlelit yoga, loads of beautiful events there. It's all about wellness, culture, creativity. What's going to do a better job of explaining it than my little mouth is going down to the socials, the website, and seeing it for yourself. So I'll put a link in the description and you could maybe come float in one of them hammocks with myself. But for now, guys, enjoy the episode. Peace and love. Thank you for coming on the show, Harry. Appreciate you coming there. Well, not coming down, but sparing some time just to join us on Who on Earth. So this is going to be for season 2, and you're actually only the second person we've had join us via Zoom. Well, that's because you're in Portugal, right?
Yes, thank you for having me, and I appreciate you doing this with me online as well. Very grateful.
No, I mean, it was the first time that I've had somebody reach out to me from abroad and say, look, we'd like to do something. Was it one of your guys has seen one of the shows before, has he?
Yeah, Kennedy, someone I worked with for a while, actually, he pointed me in your direction, let's say. I think maybe the meditation in the title, Michael, kind of gave it away, as believers in the practice and where it can take you. So, yeah, very excited to see where the conversation goes, and also very much surrendering to wherever the guidance comes.
Well, for this particular podcast, it's very person-centered. So I almost just say, let's go from where you've started and your stories, your passions, your obstacles, the things that can help people who relate. They're going to come out naturally. Your job's to go off on your little tangents. My job's to keep bringing us back. So you're in Portugal right now, but you weren't there to start with. Where was it that that life of Harry began?
Oh, wow. Crikey. It all started when I was one. No. How long do we have? I think a beautiful place to start is maybe the latest. Yeah, I mean, starting in London, basically, the edge of London. Kind of, I'm British Indian for those who can't see me and are listening, and kind of, I think being installed with that mindset of like work hard, make things happen. Just kind of create an atmosphere of safety for the people around you as kind of my default operating system. So that's where I spent the first, I would say, 27 years of my life.
All
Um,
right, well, that's a lot to skip over. So let's start with childhood, eh? How was it with you growing up? You say that you like creating these sort of places of safety and security. Was that something you had or something you didn't have as a young person?
I would say in some ways I had a safe childhood, middle class. So, parents, one of them was a doctor, the other one was a practice manager of that kind of surgery. So definitely like income wise, went to a private school, kind of had two sisters who were lovely humans. I was touch wood when I say this, healthy, no serious health issues for me or my sisters. I think in other ways it was very unsafe. I think my dad had MS and that took away a lot of
Right.
what he aspired to achieve in his life and kind of created a lot of difficulty for him that definitely got passed on in our household. Like it was
Okay.
definitely an unsafe household. And I took refuge in, yeah, a lot of kind of fantasy, a lot of, fantasy books, and kind of imagining and kind of, yeah, creating safe spaces within myself, let's say.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you don't realize until you look back, and it's one of those
Mm.
things where like certain environments quite unsafe and you didn't have the opportunity as a kid to release tensions and traumas and they kind of, slowly get stored up in your body and, not to skip to the finish line, but definitely, in my, I don't, in my kind of, let's say transformation with the help of meditation and other practices, I think one of the things I realized was like, oh my God, like, there's a lot of stored and accumulated, suffering, let's say, to process and let go of. So
How
yeah,
was that manifesting for you at the time?
when I was a kid, I would say so. Like one of the ways is that like I was raised in this mindset of actually this is a saying in my family. It's we have strong shoulders. And what it means
Okay.
is that we can always carry other people's difficulties. We can always like, we have strong shoulders. Like we can carry other
Mm.
people's struggles. I think that's definitely a big way it's manifested is like that was my default mindset, right? It's just like be strong. You're always fine. You're always, able to carry the other person's suffering.
Mm.
Yeah, like so I think you almost wanted to suffer for other people, So that was the kind of default mindset that I carry through
Like
my.
like a family identity almost of
I wouldn't
we've
even
got
say
this.
almost. I would say it's a full on.
It is.
I would say the default operating system
Right.
up was that mindset, and it's also really beautiful, right? Because we definitely have this mindset of like you help each other, you lift each other up, right? That's the kind of the light, if I may use that word, the light side
Yeah.
of that pattern, and obviously the heavy side is that can you actually fill your cup by trying to fill other people's cups?
Mm.
Probably not. There is probably wisdom to filling your own cup first, which is
Mm.
not something. Even to this day, I'm still not that great at it. Like my default is still if I'm not meditating, I'm still gonna just try and suffer for other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also see it. The thing about let's call it suffering. The thing about suffering is I also do see how it brings beautiful things to you as well, or at least to
Mm.
myself in terms of, I think it creates unique characteristics. And one of my biggest learnings has been that once you let go of certain patterns that don't serve you anymore, the strength that you cultivated in holding on to those patterns doesn't go, it actually stays. It just can be harnessed
Mm.
towards, um,
The energy behind it's different. The intentionality is changing.
yeah, that's a nice way of phrasing it. Yeah, exactly. And that's quite a cool realization.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you could say the comedian created this comedy defender part to stop themselves feeling the actual impacts of trauma. So they sort of use humor and laughter. Now you could say that's a negative, they're suppressing everything, but once they learn how to process that and they've still got the humor, they've still got the human patterns, now they're just a funny guy or funny girl. So how was that manifesting with friends in situations? Can you give the audience an example of how that was actually happening in your life where you are just taking on a bit much? Because if you're a kid, that's quite a lot to have that mindset.
Yeah, an easy example was when I was running my first company. If I can skip ahead a bit, just to give an easy thread from that pattern to manifesting in real life is, I definitely took on the mantle of heroic founder, and I would work easily twice as hard as anyone else in my company. Easily. Like it was an absurd amount of work I was putting in. And yet I would always make sure everyone else was paid first, which in one way is a beautiful way of looking after people, but in another way, looking back, still will be months that will go by where I wouldn't pay myself. I was too busy making sure my team was being paid a good amount. And now I look back and I'm like, but I was the one putting in twice as much energy, at least as any of them. And I was the one for whom the company meant the most. Why was I doing that to myself? Like, why was I not sharing the struggle a bit more? I wouldn't share with the team the financial difficulties that we would have. It would all be bottled up in me, and I would take the sacrifices, quietly amongst myself, occasionally with my co-founders. And it was like, I think, a way of behaving that makes you feel stronger on the surface because you're like, I'm looking after them. But actually, in a weird way, I almost think it infantilizes the people I worked with in a strange way. It's like, they can't deal with this.
They can't handle it.
Yeah.
I'll have to do it.
Right. Whereas I never actually gave them the opportunity to see whether they actually did want to handle that side of things. Like, what would have happened if I had shared the situation? Like, would they have just gone, oh yeah, that sucks. Like, but we will take, the team of 10 could have been like, we'll all take a 10% pay cut to make sure you get a bit of pay. That's no problem, because in the long run, we believe in this company. And it might have been that there would, so it could have been that all that suffering was unnecessary. I'll never know, but I definitely look back and I'm like, that feels like a very obvious cause.
Well, it is once you know, isn't it? Hindsight's a beautiful thing, but at the end of the day, you might have needed that, and they might have sort of like had other stuff going on. For all you know, you were actually protecting them. No one ever knows what the actual big picture is. What was the company, by the way? Just out of interest.
So that company was called Nomad MBA. It was a co-living company. We would basically bring groups of 30 people together to basically co-live and co-work for 3 months in 3 different countries. And while they were doing that, we would get them the skills and mindset to leave their corporate careers and build a company or build an idea they loved. So it was quite an intense idea. I tend to be drawn to these things. That's a whole other story. But it was actually even that concept, very much at the center of it was people. We actually had a meditation retreat in the first month. It was only 3 days long, but even that was very much centered around find your why, silence the mind, and find your why. And from that silence, the why that emerges will be what you build the next phase of your life around. It's very interesting, because I didn't really walk the talk back then in terms of meditation stuff. It's very interesting that I was already. It's strange to look back and see that meditation.
I can't relate. I don't know what you're talking about.
So
you've almost got to dress for the role that you want. Like you've got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's true. I think what's been interesting for me, the more I have cultivated an awareness, is seeing how little in control of my life my mind was. Like my mind would be telling myself a narrative, just we're going to do some meditation here because I know it sells well. That was my mindset at the time, as cynical as that sounds. Whereas now I look back and I was like, oh, there's a part of me that knew that meditation was actually ended up being the thing that took me very deep has actually become a core part of the next phase of my life. And I wonder whether there's a part of ourselves that almost knows, what happened, but you hide from yourself. Which is quite humbling in a way. You're just constantly realizing how little you know.
I believe that they say the small S and the big S when talking about the self, and I feel like there is a part that is, for me, 33 years, it's lived on this planet, it's learned through experience, and that's what my egoic structure is. But there's a deeper part, that presence, that I'm sure you're already aware of, that inner part, the stillness, the silence that is connected to, it's beyond time and space, and that probably knows a thing or two. I just did a podcast actually on the authentic self where it was all about getting in touch with the intuition. So maybe you had that intuitive knowing and it was like, right, we can see he's going to need to go down this path, but really that seed has already started growing.
Yeah, something weird is when I was 19, I studied economics at university and
Okay.
take an optional module. This is a bit of a silly story to say, but bear with me.
We're here for it.
Yeah, and when I say it out loud, you'll be like, "What's the big deal?" But for me, it's a really interesting moment on this subject, which is I did an optional module, and I was like, I can do further maths, or I can do like something like philosophy, and I was like, oh, I do philosophy. That seems easy. So I'm very much a path of least resistance kind of person in my studies. So I was like, oh, let's just try philosophy. And I remember like sitting in that first class of philosophy, and the guy comes in. He's got really long, oily hair, black robe. He looks like he hasn't come out of a room in about a month. So stereotypical like PhD philosophy, like deeply in the existential crisis. And we start studying a bit of Greek philosophy, and the mysteries underneath that they point towards. And I remember in that class, I remember having this like almost like goosebumps traveling up my neck, and it was almost like coming home the moment we started talking about philosophy and the mysteries, and it was so easy. It was almost absurd for me to like just get in and flow with it. And so we had that lecture, and I was like, oh, it was like, goosebumps, so effortless. So I went straight out. I went to the dean of my department, and I cancelled my enrollment in philosophy and switched to further maths. And the reason why is because I was so afraid at how easy it felt.
I was like, say that wasn't going the way I thought it would.
No, exactly. So there's this like fear in me that, I don't want to become this. I don't want to become that. I don't want to become someone who's, this. I had this mindset of like, oh, these are like, this hippie kind of effortless, like seeker type personality. Like, no, I'm not that, like I'm going to build a multi-million-pound startup. I'm going to, become, someone famous. And so it was like my small self was almost not ready to see my bigger self. But I look back on that moment now and I'm like, oh.
Well, you don't ask the baby to drive a car, do you? You just weren't ready yet. Obviously, there was some part of you that was like, no, not yet.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, to see already in that moment, something in me was like, oh, no. Like, uh-oh.
Don't look in that door.
Exactly. Oh, my God, that's way too truthful. Nope.
Yeah, we were not ready for that. So you also mentioned that you had a tendency to go extreme. Is that what you were saying? Like when you go into something, you have a tendency to put a lot of energy. So like you said, you work twice as hard as everybody else. Was that something that was prevalent when you were younger as well?
Yeah, I don't know why this is. I wonder if this will resonate with your audience as well. If they have, I feel like some people will recognize this when I say it, but I just cannot help myself. Like, so okay. I can trick myself. I can be like, oh, just go to this, just go to this really hard HIIT workout and just do 5 minutes. It's fine. Because I know that once I begin, something in me will just be like, I will complete this workout no matter what. If I have to drag my bleeding body across the finish line. Like it's just there in me, and it goes in everything. Like, so with meditation, whether it's a Vipassana or a silent retreat or whatever, like the moment I just have this switch that goes, okay, we're going all the way. Or like if I find it, I went on a recent men's work retreat and I found a very deep trauma within me, and I was like, oh, this is going to be really painful to feel fully, finally. And then at the same time as I felt that, there was also a voice in me that was like, all right, buckle up. Here we go. In we go. Because we're also not going to stop until this is fully felt now. Like, it's just, so I think some of your audience probably, I can see you smiling as well. I think it's something.
I know I can, yeah. I've been holding All the guests, I'm always like, me too. But with that, definitely, there's like, we'll just go for a run. Have you heard of the 2 minute rule from James Clear?
I think I know what it is
So
based
it's
on.
from Atomic Habits, and it's basically, it's quite self-explanatory. If you're going to do anything, do it for 2 minutes, because that's not overwhelming. So going to the gym, going for a run, doing some sit-ups, writing something that you're not, maybe I'm a writer, so if I was doing a book and I've got a block, just do 2 minutes, even if it's crap. And it stops it being overwhelming. But the issue with me is the other parts of myself, no, that's bullshit. You ain't doing 2 minutes, no matter how much I'm like, no, just 2 minutes. It's the same thing as you. I go on that jog and I'm keeping pace with my girlfriend. We're having a nice little, about halfway, I've lost them already. And I'm going, and how hard can I push? And I'm getting home and I'm almost passed out. My blisters on, and that part of it goes, right, oh, we're in it now. Like when I did the Vipassana, I've been the same thing. We're saying like, oh, I can feel I've just tapped into something that's been trapped and deep. It's like, all right then, how much must we do it? Like the Vipassana, I don't know about you. I think you said you'd done Vipassana yourself. Very painful for me. I'm not a yoga teacher, or I think some of it was psychosomatic. 7 days of some of the worst agony I've been in, and then something just went, okay, let's do it. But the funny thing is, there was a part of me that was constantly like just sitting with this traumatic pain day after day after day after day, not realizing actually I didn't need to be quite as intense when I softened and relaxed into it. Almost that, rather than that masculine of a let's go into it, that feminine of falling into it, then became so much easier. And I was just wondering if you found that that's played a part in your life where it almost sounds like, right, we're going in, or is it more that feminine of I'm going to relax into this?
Yeah, that's a really lovely question. I think for me, it's actually very alive in me right now. It's almost easy for me to go in like heavy masculine yang mode, and just be like, we're going to beast mode through this. Actually, one of the things I love about the Vipassana container is that it almost tempts you in with that mindset, It's like, 10 days, you can't do this. It's too long. You're going to sit still. 12 hours, you're going to sit still. You're not going to make contact with anyone. Your back's going to hurt. Your knees are going to hurt. And there's something in me that's like, let's fucking go. It's like Tough Mudder, It's like, we're going to break you. It's like, okay. Something in me is like, bring it on.
Good shot. Go on, try it then.
And then you get there. And I think the thing about the Vipassana is you get there and there's all this talk of like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to push through. And then you realize, holy shit, this is really boring. Like, there's nowhere to put your fight. It's you just sitting there. And the more you fight, the slower time goes. At least that's what I've experienced. And the more my mind's like, yeah, push through. And then that 1 hour sit, those chunks of 1 hour sit just started getting longer and longer. And it was just like, yeah, I think it's very much an invitation to embrace the feminine, to let go. Actually, the big moment, I was also, first 3 days, I was really struggling with myself on my own.
Were you just focusing on Anapana as well, the nostril breathing in, the nostril breathing out?
Actually,
you moved on?
So my Vipassana was done in the Mahasi style, which is much more about noting, which I didn't know at the time. I literally just signed up without thinking, turned up, and then they were like, yeah, so the Mahasi style, for those who don't know, is basically whenever something comes up, you note it, and then you seek for the somatic feeling underneath it. So you catch yourself thinking about fish, and so you just note it. It doesn't matter how you note it, as long as you note it. Like, lost in thought. Oh, and then you'd be like, knee hurting. Okay, note that pain, and then you kind of would just gently place your awareness on the somatic feeling. And so that's the kind of Mahasi style. It's very much based around noting practice, along with walking meditations. And there's a lot of walking meditation as well.
So you did a lot of walking in the Vipassana then, in terms of meditation?
Yeah, very, very, very slow walking, like literally like 30 seconds per step.
Feeling the tendons and then the foot and the heel drop. And
exactly. And noting all of it, right? Like lifting, moving, landing, placing, like just the idea behind the Mahasi technique is the noting is the gateway towards a silent mind, which is actually really quite powerful. Not what I expected. Like I said, I didn't.
How did it play out for yourself then?
Well, I tried to push through it, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Classic Harry, just, I'm going to beast mode through this thing. And I think my brain started to malfunction a bit. And actually, so I had a really beautiful experience, and maybe this resonates with you. It was on day 3, and I was like, my mind was really fighting with itself, like really like, Jesus Christ, this hour's going slow and slower. How is this even possible? It's absurd. Like, it's just ridiculous. How can I, what can I do to distract myself? And at some point, I got pretty fed up. So I opened my eyes and I looked around and I saw the other 8 people, and they were just sitting there, right? Like in stillness, as was I. And I looked at them and I was like, these guys are so peaceful. Like they look so peaceful, but so do I. But inside there could be who knows what. But all we're doing is just sitting here. And it was like something clicked, and I was like, we're just sitting here. That's all we're doing. Like everything else is delusion. We're just sitting here. I'm just sitting here. And then I got told a koan by someone before going in. I can't remember how it was said. It was said really beautifully. I'm going to say it badly. But essentially it was along the lines of, if trying to let go is another form of agitation, what is letting go? And at that moment, it was really odd. It was really trippy. But as I closed my eyes, I felt that koan pop up, bubble up from my stomach up to my heart. It didn't come from the mind. It was just it just appeared really serendipitously, and something just shifted within me, and I was like, it just opened something up, and I just stopped trying to do anything. And something just completely opened. And from that point onwards, for the rest of the Vipassana, I was completely serene. And actually, since then, every time I meditate, impatience was my big battle. And now I can just, it's really odd, but I can just sit. It's very hard to explain.
So when you were younger, did you have that sort of agitation, that agitated mind, that wanting to move or do something or take on that next challenge? Because I know from personal experience, when I hear people saying, "Oh, I've got ADHD," or "my mind," or da-da-da, and they're saying this is the reason I won't be able to meditate, it makes me laugh, because I'm like, they're superpowers. Because that means you have to keep coming back and keep coming back. Was that the same for you, or are you somebody who just falls into that silence and stillness quite effortlessly?
I am now someone for whom I've fallen quite effortlessly to the silence, but it was through those gauntlets, those moments, almost rites of passage, like the Vipassana, the Ayahuasca, the kind of, the retreat stuff. I had these moments that helped me break through it. And actually, yeah, my previous programming before that moment in the Vipassana was to basically be very impatient. And I think impatience for me has always been, what's interesting is I've always been trying to, so I knew it. I even told the teacher in our one-on-one during the Vipassana, I was like, I'm impatient. Impatience is my big obstacle. It's what I'm here for. It's like a huge tight ball in my stomach. And I just want to, I want to be done with each session. It's like each session, all right, come on, how long is this hour going to take? And I don't know whether it's just the desire to, it probably all comes down to the not enough self-love and the desire, not feeling enough, and the desire to want to achieve things to fill that up in a misleading way. But what was interesting for me was during that experience was not needing to understand where the impatience came from. It's just a somatic feeling, and completely letting go of the words, and truly letting go means also not trying to. I was trying to seek what is the cause of this impatience, and when I let go of that as well,
so you can get rid of it.
yeah, and then it's like this realization that you don't need to get rid of it, and ironically, that gets rid of it. It's a little bit. Maybe I'm going too 4D right now in this conversation.
No, this is my audience are here for this.
Okay.
This is the sort of stuff that I speak about. So it's nice to have somebody else. It's like, look, not just me.
Right. Yeah, but it's hard to explain, because the thing is, words are delusion, and the more you're in the words, the more the delusion is there. That's what I've been realizing, and it's like you said, the ADHD, the noisy mind, whatever it is, it's like you don't need to get rid of it. You just welcome whatever.
Embrace your unique self, man. From what I found, they were defense mechanisms to stop me from feeling how I felt. I was impatient about hair because I didn't like hair. If I liked hair, say I'm sat with my beautiful girlfriend and she's giving me a massage, I'm full, I'm not cold, everything's perfect. Well, then I'm not impatient. And the problem is I had a part that had quite a good imagination. So he could always imagine something that was a bit better. It could be the best thing. But I've seen a lot of films. I've got quite a creative imagination. It could just be a bit better. So it was always rejecting now and impatient for some future salvation that didn't exist because my bloody mind had made it up. So it could never be achieved. So I could never be content. And I don't know if that's something you can relate with.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that's the default human condition in a lot of ways, right? I think the tragedy, if I may be melodramatic, the tragedy in our modern world is that we're not reminded that our default state, we're not taught that our default state is actually one of equanimity, is one of stillness, is one of bliss. And I think there's a lot of beautiful traditions, including in the West, before things maybe got a bit dystopian capitalist, where you would have these rites of passage, these teachings that would remind you, hey, like, there is a part of you that is enough, and that is always enough, and that is there and it's accessible, and that you don't need these stimulants, these screens, this consumption to reach that state. In fact, these are false idols. They don't take you there. They're distractions. I think the tragedy is that that's not brought to our awareness. So we have to I think everyone has to get there through direct experience, and everyone has their own path. I'm very much a fan of the phrase, the pathless path. But to not be told that that is your default state, I think is a bit of a shame. Because if you can be told, once you realize that, you're like, okay, like this reprograms everything that I've thought about my life, So that's kind of how I relate to what you spoke about just now, is like, once you directly experience a state of bliss, of equanimity, of inner stillness, and you recognize that that is your innate nature, right? I think your relationship with your imagination, with, if you have ADHD, your ADHD, with your girlfriend, with whatever's around you is just very different, right? It's a healthier relationship, let's say, and also becomes part of your practice, right? I mean, the meditation practice is called practice for a reason, because your real life is where it actually kicks in. And seeing, can you be content with your girlfriend massaging you in a warm room with nice lighting? And can you also carry that contentness into waiting for the train, and the train's just got delayed by 15 minutes? Which is, to me, a really fascinating part of this whole journey, like how that inner stillness translates to more challenging moments.
Okay. So I'm mindful of, I don't want to miss out the times when you weren't quite as knowledgeable, weren't quite as experienced. So you've said that you were at university. What university was it, sorry?
UCL.
UCL. And then you said you decided you were going to go for mathematics, was it, rather than philosophy?
I studied economics, and I did an optional module in mathematics because I freaked out when I did philosophy and realized it was too
Right, that was it. So where did we go from there then? Did we end up getting some certifications, and then did we go straight into that business you spoke about, or is there anything we've missed out at all?
No, so after graduating from university, I did what well-educated middle-class people do when they don't know what to do. And I went into management consulting.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was actually what I was presented to as like a narrative of success. It's like, you go to university, you do the extracurricular stuff, you get a job in finance or as a management consultant or lawyer, and it's like, you've done it, hooray! Now you earn money, you find a human partner.
You've reached the promised land. You're happy.
That's it. You're done. You have kids.
Off into the sunset.
Exactly. Off into the rainy London sunset. You buy a house in the suburbs with 4 bedrooms. You get a nice lawnmower. You upgrade your car every 3 years. That's kind of the narrative. And so I started on that path. I lasted a year, a month, and 3 days in consulting, and I realized it didn't belong from the first day, because on the first day, I'll never forget this moment. This lady, she's a partner at KPMG, which is the consultancy I was at, one of the big 4, and she's got grey hair. She's dressed in all grey. Her face is very stern and very neutral. She stands up on a chair, right? And all the graduates are like around her, you know, starry-eyed, excited, energized. And she looks around and let me see if I can capture her energy. She goes, one day, if you follow your dreams and stick with this career path, you can be like me, a partner at KPMG. And there was no enthusiasm. There was no life force. If you took out
You
prana,
can be like me.
yeah, it was like, are you aware that your body language is telling your energetic imprint is giving a different flavor from your words? And like, I just looked around. I was like, I don't want to be like this. It's like, and then to be around people who would constantly say that's just the way it is as a default answer. I just couldn't get my head around it. I was like, how can this be the promised land? Like, how can this be it for the rest of my life? Like, I couldn't wrap I would be charged out. I was being charged out about 200 euros an hour to clients. And I was just photocopying stuff. And I was like, this is tremendously boring. Like, I don't like this. I can't believe this is the story of my life. And I even then recognized that you are what you do. You are where you place your attention, where you place your awareness. I believe that becomes you. You take that imprint in and it reprograms you. So if you spend all your time looking at spreadsheets, you start becoming more rigid and ordered. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's I kind of always knew this and I could see it in the people around me, that their mindset of just doing the minimum, getting by, not questioning things as they were, was leading to them all dressing the same, all having a similar attitude. And it's easy to say no judgment, but no, hell no, I was judging them at the time. I was like, I don't want to do this, you know?
No, let's be honest, man. We're here for vulnerability and authenticity. If you were feeling like that, you were feeling like that. I mean, I'm half trying not to judge them. Because I'm like, that sounds like hell. But some people have safety in the conformity and the reliability, and that is for them. That was one thing I used to do. I'd attack everything I didn't like, and as if and you should all agree with me. And it was like, some people, I like going to work, not having to have all the responsibility, not having to come up with all the things we need, just getting told what to do. 9 to 5, I go home. That clearly wasn't you.
Yeah, exactly. No, it wasn't. And I was definitely like, I would walk into work with my big headphones on, listening to like really loud rave music, like full of life force, full of prana, if I can use the yogic word, you know, and then I would sit down at my laptop that I was designated, and I would be copy pasting for 8 hours. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I lasted a year, a month and 3 days. And then I was like, I just, you know, I met the gateway drug to personal growth called Tim Ferriss. He's the gateway drug. Like he's the gateway, you know, like you kind of leave him behind after a while, but there's a moment where at the beginning I was like listening to 4-hour work week, all into personal growth, and there were, you know, and I would just be listening to podcasts nonstop about that. And I think what that did was, if you listen to a certain energy, a certain type of transmission, which is a higher transmission, let's call it, in terms of way of life, and it keeps going into your, in this case, airwaves and straight into your brain, and then the life you're living is very much just, you know, very square and very conformist. Something's got to give. Either I stop listening to that information, those podcasts, or that life gets set on fire. And I decided to set it on. I'm quite a dramatic person, so I just decided.
Did you actually set the building on fire, or was this?
I did, and that's why I can't go back to the UK.
Fair enough.
Actually, a wanted man. No, but I just quit. I didn't have a plan. I just quit. I was like, I'm just not doing this anymore. I didn't.
Fuck this. Not for me. See you later, guys. Enjoy the consultancy.
Yeah, and I've always had a bit of chaos inside of me where I'm just like, you know, people will be like, what are you doing? What are you going to do if you quit? I was like, no idea.
How did you feel? Because I know when I've had moments where I finally quit that job, the same sort of like box and do this, Michael, and when I actually did it, rather than everyone being like, you haven't got any money and you've got bills, I'm like, How was it for you?
Yeah, the same. Actually, also at the time, I was reading a book called Courage, The Art of Living Dangerously by Osho. For all his flaws and tricky parts, that book he wrote was definitely the right thing for me to read. And it was all about, if you live the same day every day, you're basically a robot, and you're not a human anymore. You've forgotten. And so I kind of had that mindset very much within me. It was kind of carrying me through. And I was like, yep, feeling of relief, feeling of spaciousness on a meditative level. If I may go meditative, I do believe that life follows patterns of contraction and expansion of awareness. And I could see holding on to this consultancy job as a contraction on that narrative, on that storyline of this is the one that society and my family gave me. If I'm going to go to consulting after going to good university, have a family, and it was like letting go of that job was also letting go of that storyline. And once you contract your awareness on a storyline for a long time, I believe that the resulting expansion will be equivalent to the contraction. And so there was a lot of space created from holding that attachment for a long time, releasing it. And the space that comes out of that, actually one of my biggest learnings, which I've always followed, often accidentally, is allow the space to be, like allow the yin, allow the openness. Don't try and fill it. So like one of the wisest things I did in that moment by accident was not jumping straight into something else, not having a plan.
Okay.
So like, whereas most people would go, okay, I'm quitting KPMG, but don't worry.
Rebound job.
Yeah, I've got a rebound job, which is the default. I stay safe.
Yeah.
I accidentally went into, I think, a much healthier pattern, which is you've contracted on this storyline or you've had this attachment, let go, do not fill it, allow space, recognize, release, and then allow space. And what comes next will be far more profound if you allow that space than if you were to just, because what it almost feels like what's happening is if you jump from one place to another straight away without allowing the expansion of awareness, which is surrender, which is openness, that is the expansion of awareness. Without allowing that, I think what you're actually doing is continuing the narrative you already have. Of course you are, like you haven't allowed a break. Whereas by allowing a full-on pause, surrender, break, you're allowing for something new to emerge in that space. But by definition, sorry, just to finish the thought, by definition, that something new can only come from that surrender because you cannot know what the new thing is. Otherwise, it will be created from the current version of yourself. So, yeah, it's almost to be dramatic again. It's almost a cycle of death and birth, right? And to allow the death to fully happen of that version.
I like dramatic. Be as dramatic as you need to be, man.
Okay, great. I keep apologizing for it because I'm like, am I, you know? But
No,
okay.
no, you go for it, man. We don't want no boring vanilla. Just let's try and appease everyone. Like you be you. It's who on earth is Harry Verma at the end of the day.
Sweet.
Funny that you were saying that. I don't know if you've had any experience with Bufo alvarius, one of the master medicines, but it's it was actually funny enough. What season 2 is going to start with somebody who actually runs Bufo alvarius trips in a country where it's legal, and they use Vipassana technique to get people completely on page with. But I'm not going to ruin the episode for people. But for myself, all this holding on to everything I thought I was, including the suffering, and basically this was so overwhelming compared to any other experience I'd had. It almost was like pressing the reset button. But the problem, well, not the problem, actually, the blessing was when you clicked that reset button, all that suffering came out as energy. And that was just sound and movement was the way that I'm called Mike for a reason. I amplify sound, I think. I'm meant to express energy through sound. And it was just this. But because of that contraction, it then had gone so tight, and that expansion was, so it was pure suffering. So I'd lost my dad and my granddad and my uncle. So pure grief. But pure grief wasn't this negative. It was actually beautiful in its purest state. And it had been this contracting around, I don't want to feel that had caused the discomfort, which is what I think the suffering was. Pain isn't suffering, resistance to pain is suffering. And once I'd let go, that expansion, and it was then that the space was created to be with it all. And I was probably, at first, for the first couple of days, I was almost like shaky, if that makes sense, because it had been such a release. But then started coming into the still. I hadn't jumped straight into the next job, and it really allowed me to integrate and process it, and almost stay in that expanded state rather than going right straight into the next thing and going back into those behavior patterns. So I just wanted to share that because when you were saying it, I was getting excited by what you were saying, and then the wisdom to not just right next girlfriend, right next job, right next addiction or whatever it is. Let's just sit with this expansion. So you've done that. How long are we sitting in expansion for?
Not
Until we
long.
go into the next stage.
Not long. And we're going to have a good conversation about this subject you mentioned probably later, because ayahuasca is the cornerstone of my death and rebirth and a new version of myself as well. So that's, and definitely.
Well, if you could imagine, ayahuasca is this long 6-7 hour experience, got very like that grandmotherly feel.
Yeah.
Rufo Alvarez is the grandfather. We're getting to the point. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to know. 20 minutes later, what happened?
Jeez,
just awesome. So you can understand the difference. It's the same energy, but just one's longed out, one's very intense. So go on, do tell. What's your
beautiful
next stage?
No, beautiful, man. And I think on a level, like, I think whether it's ayahuasca, bufo, San Pedro, meditation, yoga, torture apparently is a very common method by accident, or whether it's just, enough suffering to give up, whatever it is, I think all roads lead to Rome, as in like the truth, this underlying, the present moment is where it all leads to. It's actually hilarious. It's almost funny once you realize this, that they're all just taking you into the present moment. But to enter the present moment, like you cannot enter the present moment if you're attached to your past suffering, because then you're attached to the past suffering. You're not in the present. So you're going to have to wade through all that suffering, that's there and process and release to enter it. And the same with the anxieties about trying to control the future. That ain't the present. And so like it's almost like all of it's inviting you to the present. That there's all these things that we're just carrying towards the future and past. Like almost like we're holding on to these, left.
Well, it seems like the now present moment, such this small sliver, and then there's all this past and all this future. So I can understand why people get a bit stuck.
Yeah. So I think on the deepest level, I think that's all that's actually happening with all of these pathways. And to bring it to the most elemental level, I think that's we walk into the past, walk into the future, and as we release those, we enter the present, and then something happens there that's pretty beautiful that the words fail to capture. But I was
words do the best, but they're a bit clumsy. The directions aren't the place, are they?
That's true. Until I become good enough at just vibrating air.
Now it's going to be expressive dance for the next 5 minutes.
Expressive dance without any explanation. Everyone's just a little confused.
The listeners will be the most confused people. The least people on YouTube will. Oh, this is cool. So you've gone from leaving this role then, and you said it wasn't too long you'd stayed in the sort of like stillness until you went into the next thing. What was the next thing?
Yeah, I met a startup founder at a networking conference. We had like 6 beers each, which, for those who don't know, I'm a lightweight, so 6 beers is like the equivalent of...
You're pissed out of your head by this point.
It's the equivalent of someone from the north of England having 16 pints, put it that way.
Right.
No, I was...
Water, this is just pure vodka.
Exactly. It was really nice. Like, I think we had a really beautiful conversation, and he invited me to work with him. Ended up joining as an unpaid intern and then becoming the first employee of that company. We had like a team of 5 people. I was kind of in charge of the sales team of 5 people. I worked there for 2 years. It was awesome. I learned how to sell. I learned how to tell stories. Like learning how to sell is a golden attribute if you want to be a startup founder. So I learned how to do that. I learned how to manage a team, how to motivate a team. And I was just 23 years old when I was doing this. So it was really valuable. Again, this is one of those things where like, it doesn't make sense. Like Steve Jobs says, the dots join up in hindsight. And so I feel like, following the heart, having that space for things to emerge has always led me to the right thing, in hindsight. But yeah, I did that for 2 years. And after I got restless feet after 2 years because I still felt like, so the startup was all about making bookable videos for restaurants. And so that's not really an interesting purpose to me. Like there's something in me that's like... Okay.
Well, as a child, you weren't just, what I want to do.
Yeah. Bookable videos, Dad and Mum, that's what I want to do. Like, you're a very strange kid. So I think something was still there where I was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. And I think, like I said before, like once I recognize that this isn't it, like once I recognize a storyline, or once I recognize a character, I feel like we all play different characters at different times in our life. And once I recognize the character that I'm playing and I start to feel like it's growing thin, I really can't hold on to it for long. Like it's really time's up the moment I recognize it, and I'm like, oh, this is not a game I'm interested in playing anymore. So
Is that like just a snap thing, or is it a gradual thing?
oh wow, crikey. No, gradual. I think the recognition emerges at one point that I'm playing a character, and then at this stage where I'm at, I can recognize I'm playing a character and enjoy playing the character
Yeah.
much earlier than in the past, where I'd be caught up fully in the character I'd be playing. You know,
I am Sonic.
yeah. So I think for me it was once that recognition hit, it was only a matter of time, not long. So I quit. I did a master's in entrepreneurship, not to actually learn about entrepreneurship because I'd already worked in startups, just because I wanted to have fun for a year. So just being honest, I was 25. I was like, I want to have fun for a year.
Yeah, man.
And so I went back to uni, built a really good group of friends, had an amazing time. And actually, with two of the friends there was kind of the people I started my first company with, called Nomad MBA. And I was always passionate.
Called what, sorry?
Nomad MBA, it was called.
Okay.
I'd always been passionate, even during the year. So during the masters, I was constantly trying out different ideas to bring personal growth and bring awareness to young adults. That was kind of my hope. I was like frustrated that I had to go through these corporate jobs and gigs in order to discover this world of meditation, discover this world of different ways of life. And I was like, why are we not bringing this to people? So I've always had the kind of that spark in me, and that kind of combined with meeting the right people during my masters was what led to my first company, which was, like I said before, which was 3 months, 3-month programs, co-living across the world, while we get you the skills and mindset to do what makes you feel alive. And that was the whole idea. That's kind of how my story went. Launched that company when I was 27. That was 2017. Oh my God, I'm old. It went really fast. Like, it went really well. We grew really fast. We grew to a team of like 20 people. Within 2 years, like hit over $1 million in revenue, like kind of good things happened. Like,
doing all right.
Yeah, I was very proud of that. And I was very like puffed up peacock, I think like a young male dude, company goes well first time, you just become like strutting around with your feathers out. Very identified with it, to an unhealthy degree, but hindsight. And then obviously the pandemic came along. And if you're doing a co-living travel company and a pandemic comes along, you, my friend, are really fucked. So we got absolutely fucked.
It's always the COVID bit. It's always someone's telling me their story and they go, and then COVID fucking it, and then this happened.
Yeah, honestly. Jeez. Yeah, try doing real life community and travel and selling that, and when it's basically made illegal randomly for 4 months, and then it's lifted for 2 months, and then everyone changes their mind and goes back to making it illegal again. It's like, ugh. And that
I am mindful of the more vulnerable you are, the more you share the moments of adversity, the more it's going to resonate with those people who need to hear it. So how was that for you?
At the time when COVID hit, I didn't feel anything except let's fucking go. Like, let's fucking ride this out. Like I switched into my default operating system, which is beast mode, martyr, suffer for others. I got this. So I just kind of slipped into that mindset. And what happened was I was beasting through. I pivoted to an online community during the pandemic, which, by the way, I have no interest in. Like, we'd have these members paying us and, 200-300 members. And I'd constantly be like, I can't believe these people are actually turning up to like online meetups. Like, just go do some yoga, go for a run in the forest. Like, so I was now building a product that didn't resonate with me. The team that I had around me was burning themselves out and slowly getting smaller. My co-founders quit because of burnout. And so what was happening, and also my relationship with the woman I deeply loved, she was in the Netherlands. We couldn't see each other much as well because of COVID. And just kind of things were just falling apart around me as I kind of stayed in my safe space, which is beast mode.
And how was that for you emotionally?
I mean, emotionally, I wasn't feeling much.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like, I was so what happened was I just entered beast mode the moment the pandemic hit and didn't come out.
Right.
So I just stayed really strong and like together and like I am the one who can push through.
Mm.
And I think what was happening underneath was things were just building up. The breakup with my girlfriend, the house that I was living in, all the people going back to Europe, the company, the team of 15 people, 20 people going down to 7 people, to 6 people, to 5 people, the other co-founders leaving. Suddenly I have to deal with, so I'm not an operational person. I'm more creative storyteller. Suddenly I was also doing the operations and legals.
Mm.
And it wasn't, yeah, actually, like, so I think what was happening was I was just contracting, trying to become stronger and stronger as all around me crumbled. The layers of that version of my identity, the relationship, the friend group, the company, right, just kind of falling apart. And
So Michael's the name, meditation is the game, and Meditation with Michael has now launched its very own website. Everything I'm doing is going to be on there. From meditation classes, which you can join in person, catch up if you missed one, or just join online from the comfort of your own home. One-to-one sessions. We've got loads of freebies like the chakra meditations, and we've also got a new 10-day beginners course. So if you really want to build that strong foundation, I've suffered with anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies. I've lost family members. I've been an addict, unhealthy relationships coming out my ears. Meditation was the panacea. Learning how to sit with any sensation that arises really just helps you to master that patience, and those who master patience, well, they master everything else. So I want to pass that on. It is my purpose to alleviate my own suffering, show others how to do the same, and we can all live more peacefully. It sounds all right, that, doesn't it? So this website is a lovely little hub for you to find everything I'm doing, from the ecstatic dances to the floating meditation journeys. I'll put a link in the description. Go check out meditationwithmichael.co.uk and awaken the power within. Peace and love, guys.
actually, it wasn't somatically. I think the warning signs for me began to kick in somatically. Actually, when the pandemic ended. So, and I think this is interesting for other people. It's like being strong during a crisis is something that happens, but I think when the crisis ends, that almost starts giving you permission to then actually feel. And that's kind of what happened with me. It was like, okay, the pandemic started to end. I had some investors in the company, actually offered me 500,000 to bring the company back up again, because it's perfect for post pandemic, right? Travel, community, find what makes you alive. It's like perfect time.
Get out.
Yeah, get out there, live. And I felt no excitement, no spark of excitement, no passion. And that was the first warning sign. I didn't listen because I'm an absolute trooper. So I kept going. And then my body started, like, I felt tightness in my stomach and in my neck and in my chest. And I still trooped on. Like, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then this always makes people laugh, but it's true. And then I started waking up every day singing I Want to Break Free by Queen. I'm not making that up. Every single day I would wake
Was it
up.
like an unconscious habit, or were you doing that on purpose?
No, unconscious. Just like I would just be brushing.
Well, you weren't like, it wasn't, the penny wasn't dropping.
It dropped after about 2 weeks and a half, 3 weeks in a row.
2.5 weeks.
Then I was like, hang on a minute. My subconscious is like, I can imagine my subconscious or my intuition being like, all right, pull the lever that says he's not feeling anything. He's not getting the signal. Pull the lever that says tight stomach.
Have you seen Inside Out, that kids film?
I haven't. I've heard people.
It's like you've heard of IFS, internal family syndrome.
Yeah, a lot.
System, and it's just like it's got like an anxiety part, it's got a boredom part, it's got a joy part, a sadness part, and they are literally pulling levers and putting images on. So it's funny hearing. I can imagine your little dudes all being like, "Come on, I want to break free."
Genuinely, right? Like, fuck me. How my intuition must have been absolutely baffled. Just like, dude, pulling the lever that says tight stomach, pulling the tight chest lever, pulling the. All right, what do we do now? Make him sing I Want to Break Free. Isn't that
Queen?
Yeah. Is he getting it yet? It's been 2 weeks. He's still not.
I mean, I like the music. The fact that you chose Queen, even unconsciously, I already like you more now.
Yeah, I mean, quality. Well, we try and stick with quality. Queen is. But yeah, so that was what happened, and that still wasn't enough, by the way. That's how stupid
Oh,
strong I am. But like,
okay.
you at least. But it started cracking it open, and then I met my leading. So like, you meet special people in your life who help you up, and that's something I've realized. Like, you meet people who are more aware than you, who are more developed than you, who help you. And at the time I couldn't understand why, but now I realize why. It's because actually, as Buddha said, if you knew what I knew about sharing, you would never stop sharing. And actually, it's probably the most fulfilling thing you can do. And I remember meeting my lead investor, an amazing man called Hugo, who's really successful, kind of, the main investor in my company. And I was talking to him about, raising the money and what to do next. And he was listening to me, like just listening to me talk. And after I finished my monologue, um, he just basically told a story about how a relative of his kept going with an idea, even though his passion had run out and his fire had run out, and pushed on for years and years, and how it didn't take him anywhere because the fire had gone out. And he finished the story and he just kind of stayed quiet again and looked at me. And the part of me was like, why is he saying this story? And another part of me was like, I know exactly why he's saying this story.
Yeah.
And it was really one of those beautiful moments I've ever experienced of just a person giving me permission. Like just seeing, is that a moment of someone just seeing what's under the words and seeing the energy and the being beneath all the story about how we're going to push through it, and saying it in a way that just gave me permission.
Mm.
I don't know how to explain it any other way, but it was like, I came back from that and I was like, yeah, yeah, like something in that story was just like, oh,
See you reliving it.
huh?
I can see you reliving it like, ah.
Yeah, it's just such a moment. Like I've never had something, to have something like that happen to you is a really special thing for someone to do that for you, to recognize something in you and just like and to give you permission, but not in an obvious way. Did it in the exact
Not
right
just
way.
telling you, it was quite skillful.
Yeah, exactly. It felt to me those moments are when something higher is being channeled through you.
Mm.
Like that's kind of what I feel happened. Like something just moved through him, shared the story in the exact right way, at the exact right moment. Something, the higher part of myself or the deeper part of myself recognized it and was like,
Mm.
yeah, that's enough now, And the small self could no longer, could no longer.
Did Queen stop after that?
We did begin to stop as I closed the company down, and let go of that.
Mm. How did it feel letting go then of this? Like, this is your first big one, isn't it? You've been fighting through the pandemic.
At the time, I wish I could say it felt scary or sad. The truth is, it just felt like a relief. The exact same as when I quit KPMG. It just felt like, oh, thank God. That was 2 years too late almost. It's like, oh,
Okay.
finally. That's. And I actually had the intention of, and my intention from closing the company was to take a year to just be young. Like, to just be silly, be playful, travel, not be responsible for a team or finances or the future. Um, that was kind of my intention, to completely let go, which didn't manifest. What actually happened was my mindset. I would basically wake up every day after I closed my company down. I would get a to-do list out. This is the way I would function. I would write on my to-do list, yoga, meditate, hike, relax. And then I would like be ticking them off. It's just like, it doesn't make so I was
I
malfunctioning.
absolutely get you. I absolutely get you.
Yeah. I was like a hammer, just looking for nails.
I love
So
that relax. Between 6 and 7, you can relax.
I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm supposed to be doing whatever I want to do, but I'm
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
unable to do that. And so I felt like, I guess this was the beginning of, I would say, the death and rebirth of me. There was
Okay.
something in me that started to go, something's off.
Mm.
Something in my belief system is not translating into a happy and healthy life. I don't know what it is because it's my belief system. So I have to die. Something in me has to die here. And that was kind of the beginning of the big arc towards the rebirth. Because was that realization. I remember I went to some meditation and yoga retreats where I met some wonderful people, actually, really wise, kind beings who gave, in hindsight, I'm going to go woo-woo now, but in hindsight, I can see that they knew that I was heading towards an awakening.
Okay.
Because I just know, because now I see other people in Innate what I run, and I can recognize it in other people. When the suffering gets dialed up to such an extent that the veil between illusion and reality becomes thin. And that's when these people kind of come and they're like, hey, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Be not afraid, as it says
Yeah.
in the Bible,
I mean, well, even those people will have been at that point at some point. So that's why you can see it now, because you can't show somebody something you don't even know.
No, but you can, and it was such a strange experience to feel these people just giving this, like the meditation teacher. I went to a meditation retreat, and afterwards he like gave me his number. He's like, just message me whenever you need it. And I did message him a few times, and he would always message back, a voice message. There's a part of me was like, why is he doing this? Paid for this,
What's wrong with him?
This is terrible capitalism.
Accessible and kind. What's this about?
Yeah, genuinely, right? It couldn't understand. It was like doubting it. It was like, what's his game? That was the part.
Yeah, what's underneath somebody being kind and nice to us? What's the manipulation I'm missing?
Exactly, because everything is a means to an end. That was the thing that I couldn't get. I was like, everything's a means to an end, so what's the point of anything? I meditate to become more productive. I dance to hook up with a girl. I do my work to, like everything was for something else. And yeah, that kind of led me towards ayahuasca, through a few signs as well from other people where I was like, okay, I've not really taken psychedelics before.
How old are we here?
31.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that kind of led me
I might be the exact same age I was.
Really?
Yeah. But you hadn't really not played, that's the wrong word, worked with any of the other master medicines, then it had just been the ayahuasca one that was calling to you.
Yeah, I don't know dude, like, I don't know what came over me, but like my ex, who I deeply loved and will always love, she had ayahuasca and it changed her life. And I met this other guy, Glenn, became a really good friend of mine. I was supremely joyful and credited a lot of it to ayahuasca. And I was like,
okay,
I don't know, I felt like there was something in me that was like, this is coming to my awareness at the exact right time, when I'm also knowing that something in my belief system has to change, and that my ego is just so stubborn that it needs something strong. And so I didn't know.
Cup of tea won't do it.
Yeah, I tried a lot of cups of tea, and it's like, how many cups of tea does it take to have an ego death? Turns out more than 100. But yeah, I want to make a YouTube channel, by the way, one day that does that. How much of this substance before you get an ego death? But anyway,
let me know when that's coming up.
I want to do ceremonial cacao first. We'll try that. We'll start easy. Yeah, so I just threw myself in. There was an ayahuasca ceremony place in Spain that had
okay, like a retreat space then.
A retreat space that did 3 ceremonies in 4 days.
Okay, was it just ayahuasca? Because I know that some people bring in other assistant medicines, shall we say?
No, it was also Cambo, but I didn't partake in the Cambo.
No. That's before or after, isn't it? Just to sort of cleanse that, it sort of attaches to the peptides, and it's almost like it's not psychedelic, is it, Cambo? It's more like a physiological flush, shall we call it?
I think so. I mean, I haven't had it, so I can't.
Oh, you've not had it before? No, neither have I. I know practitioners have even had one on the show, but I've just, for some reason, every time it's not quite landed. So tell us about what you did have then.
Oh, I had 3 ayahuasca ceremonies, and yeah, that'll do it. Like, that's definitely changed my life. I think the first ceremony was full of suffering for me. Like,
Okay.
full of suffering, like very similar to what you said about the Bufo. Like, that really just went straight into like all my fears. This kind of, I was afraid of. I'm afraid of mosquitoes. I'm afraid of being rejected. Like, these are like 2 big fears. Like, and I was also concerned about my relationship with my father being very unhealthy. And literally, the ceremony begins. I take the ayahuasca, I lie down, and I start hearing a giant mosquito buzzing around my head. And I'm like, fuck's sake. This is how it's going to be. And then the mosquito goes
Okay.
in my head, and I can hear it
Yeah.
buzzing around in my brain. And there's a feeling that I have of like, this mosquito will never stop buzzing in my head. It'll get louder and louder until I either go insane or until I learn to let go. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Here we go, straight in, classic Harry, like the most, like, you take it, oh, it's just straight into the fears. And yeah, and it
It
was,
knows though. One thing I've realised with these medicines is it knows what you can be with, and clearly it understood that there was something in you that for some people they need that soft come on in with you. It knew that almost like shows from your patterns that you've already told me, like you're going to respond good when it's come on then.
yeah, I believe that as well, actually. Do you know, it was so trippy, but like before the ayahuasca ceremony began, I had the ayahuasca in my hand. Um, and I just said, like, it takes as long as it takes. It takes as long as it takes. And that was exactly what I felt in the ceremony. Like, it's just like weird. Like, it's like almost like a download from a higher power, just saying that in the moment before it began. And that became my mantra. Whatever happened, I was like, even when that was happening, I was like, it takes as long as it takes. Like, whatever it takes, I'm here. And,
Sorry, I'm just mindful as well. Although this is season 2 and we've had quite a few people speak about this, just let's pretend that we've got somebody on for the first time. What is ayahuasca? Just so they understand what we're talking about.
crikey, I don't, yeah, ayahuasca is a plant medicine brewed from indigenous cultures in Latin America. I'm not the most knowledgeable about plant medicines. I just take them and get sent to another planet. So,
You don't need to know how the TV works to watch
yeah,
it.
yeah, and I'm also very grateful to those cultures for preserving that wisdom, and I'm very aware that I come to it as a visitor and not one of its people. Just to caveat that.
Well, I
But
think
yeah,
your experience that you were telling us is going to tell people far more than just the components of the actual medicine. So you said you had this mosquito stuck in your head and you said takes as long as it takes.
yeah, dude, it was more extreme than that. Like, the first scene was a mosquito going around my head. The second scene that then appeared was like someone, I was in the dentist strapped down, and there was a man with an electric pizza cutter moving the pizza cutter into my head to cut
Nice.
to take my ego out, basically. It was like telling me what,
Did you feel that, or was that just an image?
it was like a very real image, and it was
Okay.
fucking terrifying. And then the next, yeah, and the next scene was of like a fresh burn wound, and someone ripping the plaster off it.
Okay.
And I knew, because you know things during these, so people who haven't taken these kind of medicines, you have these knowings during it, which is very hard to explain what that means, but you just kind of know things as they happen. And I knew as burn wound plaster was being ripped off, which is very painful, I knew that was my own relationship with myself. That was what I thought of myself, which was like, 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 oh my God. Like, so it's like, that's the beginning. And then it started after like a while of just roasting me with that and softening me up. Um, it then took me to all these past relationships I had with all these different people where I thought I was being smart and amazing. And it then flipped it to their perspective, but showed me that I was actually, they could see through my act, and they could see that I was lost and scared and looking for love. And that was also like, I was like crying. I was like squeezing my t-shirt. I was like, oh no, no, like what? This is horrible. And I don't know how long that went on for, probably hours, because I think the facilitators got a bit worried at me at some point. But at some point, something flipped in me. I don't know when exactly it was, but there was a moment where like another one of those scenes must have been scene number, at least 50 of those scenes had happened. So I was really getting,
It took as long as it had needed to take.
it really did take as long as it needed to take. It turns out that was a long time. But then a scene suddenly appeared of another one of these scenes of like, they could see me, being lost, scared, but instead of pitying myself and being embarrassed, I suddenly just like realized that these people could see me despite all the silly acts that I was doing to try and be bigger than I was. And they were still helping me and loving me. And I was like, huh? And something in me stopped. And I was like, what? And I just started laughing. And suddenly the scenes came faster and faster. And I just couldn't stop laughing how funny it was that I was playing this character, trying to be the founder, trying to be the amazing boyfriend, trying to be the perfect son, and that everyone could see through it. and that everyone was loving me anyway. And I was like, this
And it wasn't even necessary.
What was I doing? Why was I doing that?
Yeah.
And yeah, I came out of that whole experience full of joy, just laughing, and just like food had never tasted so good. I was just like, I remember really feeling like, like I looked in the mirror and I was like, I'm gonna start loving myself from this point onwards. Like, I'm not gonna do what I'm. Why? And at that point, I realized the mosquito sound was gone from my head, and it wasn't like a success or a triumph. I wasn't like, yes. I was just like, yeah, of course it's gone. What a silly thing to do to myself. Why would I do that? I was just found it funny. I was like, remembering the burn plaster, and I was like, that's a silly game to play. I'm not going to play that. So it wasn't like I'd overcome it. It was just like I'd gone to a space of awareness where I realized that I don't need to do that to myself anymore. And it was like
I completely resonate. That laughter at why had I been so serious? What the fuck was that all about? And how funny it is when it finally just drops and you're like, oh. So ceremony 2.
Ceremony 2 was more dramatic. Yeah. So yeah.
I'm getting a sort of pattern here with you. You don't do things half, do you?
Yeah. It seems to be a bit of a thing, but I love myself for it now. It's so the second ceremony, I'll be a little bit quicker with it because I think it's a bit more trippy. And the truth is that I think if you haven't, it's more of a direct experience type journey. But essentially, I took ayahuasca and my ego fully reared itself up, like made itself as big as possible, and was like, "Fuck you! You're not stronger than I am. Go home. I'm in control." Okay. And I stood up after like half an hour, and I was like, I spoke to the shaman and the guys, and I was like, "Guys, this isn't strong enough. My ego has won. This time, not for me. I'm gonna go home now." And I tried to leave, and they had to like stop me from trying to leave. And they were like, and then they were like trying to convince me to stay. And then this lady did the perfect thing to do to someone when they're fully in the ego. And she said, "Would you like another shot?" Which is a challenge. And of course, if you're fully stuck in your ego, what does the challenge do? Fuck yeah, I can handle another shot. And I took another shot. Ego fully pumped, fully strong, fully like, I'm in control. Ayahuasca, 0. Harry, 1, you know? And after I took the shot, I realized something funny was happening, and my ego suddenly froze and like freaked out. Basically, what it did was it removed the concept of time. So I had no concept of time anymore. I couldn't count past 7. And that completely undercut the entire big, strong ego. Because what is the ego when there's no time? And so I started freaking out. I tried to escape 3 times. I tried to physically run out. I also tried to find my phone to call Uber.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I just...
No, it's funny. Like, I'm telling you this because it's fucking hilarious.
It's because I've lived it as well. I can see, like, yeah, all right, yeah, fair enough.
One of the facilitators used to be a bouncer. So he was like literally perfect because he had to physically catch me twice from running away in the middle of my trips. And I malfunctioned hard. I was like, I was like, you guys have poisoned me. This trip doesn't end unless I die. You guys are maybe going insane. This will never finish. Like, and I kept asking for the time, and they kept being like, "Oh, the time is now." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, I understand the time is now.
I understand."
And also, what is the fucking time? Because in my mind, my ego was looking for the time. Because if I had the time, my ego would have something to grasp on, and I could be like, all right, 5 hours, and just count down and watch the clock.
Yeah.
Get through it.
There's a floor again. Yeah, I need to walk a long way, but at least there's a fucking floor to walk on.
Yes, perfectly said. And so they blessed them. They never gave me the time. They were like, the time is now. And I kept saying, how do I end this? And they kept saying, just let go, man. I was like, no. Actually, it got to the point where, because I couldn't find out the time, at some point, and I couldn't count past 7, which is also really tricky, by the way. It got to the point where I decided I was going to mimic a clock. So I was sitting in the kitchen with one of the shamans who was keeping an eye on me because I kept trying to escape. And I decided I was going to lie on the floor and then walk like a clock. So I was basically on the floor of the kitchen, walking, like with my ear to the ground, and just walk like a clock. So that's what I did.
I'm not saying anything.
I mean, I am. It's fucking hilarious. Poor Sean kept a straight face the whole way through. Absolute dude. Yeah, I mean, that was a beautiful ceremony because at some point I physically ran out of energy. I decided to go back into the ceremony room and just smash the mattress. I don't know why, but I decided I was just going to smash the mattress to pieces. And at some point, I physically ran out of energy and I gave up. And when I gave up, I had everything opened up. I realized I didn't care about time. And I started laughing. I looked at the shaman. The shaman looked at me. He nodded at me.
Yeah.
I nodded at him.
The time is now.
The time is now. And I started dancing. I was just like laughing, dancing. And
Yeah, man.
after that ceremony, I sobbed for the first time in my life as well. I had a
Okay.
moment of just like complete sobbing. And this is a theme with me, which is like, I don't know why I sob or why I kind of let go of the impatience of the Vipassana. And I don't need to know. In those moments, I'm just sobbing. And that's it.
And how was it for you? Because if that's one of the first times you've done it as an adult.
Fucking great, man.
Yeah.
Especially as men, right? We struggle to sob, not cry, sob.
Oh, proper wails, yeah. And just like maybe a tear or two, but that'll do.
Yeah, right. So sobbing is really something. It's a huge release. Yeah, and then the third ceremony, just to finish the storyline, the third ceremony, I came in full of joy, full of happiness, and just said, I have no intention with this ceremony. I just want to dance. And that was the ceremony where I felt her presence of ayahuasca, because these medicines can have a presence for those who haven't taken. And she was looking at me, I was looking at her, and she was like, are you ready to go the whole way? I was like, sure. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with if I don't, and then kind of, led me through the process of letting go of my life, saying goodbye to my sisters, my mom, my dad, like basically literally dying. And on that journey there, seeing all the suffering that was happening in the world, seeing how it was part of the play, along with all the joy, how they go together like dark and light, like up and down, and seeing it further and further zoomed out to the point where I could just say like, oh, it's time for me to go home and like rejoin the energy, the consciousness underneath everything. And actually, one of the most beautiful things was on my way there, I saw the shamans around me. I saw everyone as eggs of light, and the shamans were full of light, and there were people around us who were different shades of light but dimmer. And I was like looking at it, I was like, wow, like that's amazing. And after I had the moment of ego death, it's only a glimpse, the glimpse of samadhi, of kundalini waking, of ego death, whatever you want to call it, as I came back to my body, I was really surprised, and I was like, oh, why am I back in my body? Like, why am I back? And I literally, in that moment, remembered, like, somatically remembered when I was on my way there, seeing the lights in these people who'd experienced this glimpse, full of brightness. And it's like, like, what do you do when you experience that light? You share it with other people. There's nothing more fulfilling to do than that. There is no why beyond that. That is it. To remember that life is a dance and a struggle, because life is also a struggle. But we've forgotten in our modern world that life is also a dance.
Well, it needs to be an expansion and a contraction. It can't just be one.
Cannot be one, and to pretend it's just one is to do a disservice to the whole play. And it's the thing about dancing, and the reason why I love the word dance is because if you're dancing for a purpose, you're not dancing, in my opinion. If you're dancing to theater, you're actually exercising.
Yeah.
If you're dancing to, attract a mate, you're actually trying to, you're doing pickup. So like, I think to dance,
it's not pure expression. It's more, like you said, it's that having a purpose behind what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. And my favorite is like, if you're truly dancing and you're feeling the music, and I'm sure everyone listening to this has had a moment like this, where you're fully feeling the music, you're dancing, and you're in the moment. If someone comes up to you in that moment and says, why are you dancing? There is no answer to give. You would just be like, dude, what are you talking about? Come join in. And you would invite them in.
The time is now.
Right? And you would just invite them to dance with you. You'd be like, why are you not dancing? That's it.
Yeah, why not?
And that's the same with the lights and with this experience. It's like, just invite people.
I really like that. I like that. It's almost like, what's the meaning of life? Why not? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. The quote from Gandalf, it is not for us to know what is it? It's not for us to know.
It's not for us to know. Oh, you've
Something
annoyed me
about
now.
like, yeah, it's on
Yeah,
the
I
edge
know
of
what you're
the
saying.
precipice. All we have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given to us. That's it. It's not
Yeah,
for us to know why. All that we have to
yeah.
do is decide. And that's kind of how I feel. It's like, and actually after that experience with ayahuasca, I felt I was full of joy for about 6 months. I would wake up randomly just full of joy to the point where I was crying of joy. And like
Nice.
nobody was rude to me or nasty to me for pretty much 6 months nonstop. It was a really obvious realization that your inner world is reflected in your outer world. And it was a hell of an experience to just have that equanimity, bliss, strength flowing through. Like, it's like a fountain of
Mm.
love just flowing through my whole body for months after that ceremony. And that was actually the beginning of my company, Innate, that I run now, was from that resonance,
Okay.
from that moment. And to get even weirder, the song playing as I came back into my body is a song that we play on every collab now as well. Like, it's one of
Thought
the
you were going to say break free then.
imagine still trying to break free.
It's
No, but
like ceremonial ayahuasca, then it's like, I want to break free, and you're there.
dude, I tell you what, that would be a good song to say in one. I'm not
I mean, I'm
against.
an ecstatic dance DJ, so when you're talking about the dance and the music and how powerful it is, that is because I believe in stillness meditation, but I also believe in movement meditation. Meditation is just returning to that deepest essence of
Mm,
what you are. I'm teaching you how to get there and what might be blocking it so you can become aware of it. But we can also express it through a dance. How does hate want to express itself? How does anger want to express itself? Irritation, that's just as healing. About letting those energies express themselves. When I was on
mm,
my ayahuasca experience, that was one of the, sorry to sort of hijack the thing there, but
see.
it was very much I felt awful. Like that's how I would label it. Very uncomfortable sensations. And like you said, it's a knowing. She's not actually talking to you. Oh, hi, Michael. Grandmother's ayahuasca is not so. How are you doing? But it was like, look, those energies are not getting chance to express themselves, but they're within you, and you're the only one who can either sit there and feel it or express it and show the world.
Mm,
But you don't know the golden rules. And I was like, well, the golden rules. Again, we're not having a chat. It's a knowing, and they can't cause suffering to you. They can't cause suffering to any other being.
mm.
Get creative. How does hate want to express itself? How does anger? How does impatience? How do they want to express themselves? And then all of a sudden, all these feelings, I just started going, and I could feel it almost like poison being drawn from a wound. These parts had never been given the respect, the love, the presence to just exist. And once I'd done that, it was like, ah. Oh. But they weren't the pretty ones. They weren't the flamboyant moves. They weren't the comedic. They weren't the
Mm.
loving partner or son. They were hate. They were disease. They were whatever. And like you said, don't worry about the labels. It just is. And after
Yeah.
then, I've done so much work with just, I will just breathe into a sensation, the somatics, and then just intuitively just let the sound or the movement come out. So I didn't mean to hijack it, but it just
No, I love
felt
it. I
like,
love it so much. I love it because I do something similar. The more I've practiced yoga and dancing and shape, the more tools I gather, the more I realize I can just feel into whatever tool is needed in the moment without even thinking about it and honoring whatever's there. And I think it's beautiful. Also, the reason why what you're sharing is beautiful for me is because I have never met more narcissists than in the world of spirituality and meditation and these kind of places. And like the thing is, like you end up, your ego wraps around it as an identity. Oh, I am meditating. You meditate? I meditate 2 hours. Oh, you
I
did.
did it for free.
Yeah, exactly. I'm wearing spiritual clothes. Oh, you can't do a downward
Yeah.
dog for 10 minutes. And it's like to not forget that it's all different flavors of nonsense and
Mm.
express the nonsense that is
I
best for
like
you.
that.
And like it's important. Like the thing is, yeah, like don't transcend. Like that's the thing. Like, you don't need to. There's nothing to transcend here. Like this physical matter, this world we're in, is as divine as the
Mm.
consciousness that it plays
I
out
like
through.
that.
There
It's not
isn't.
somewhere better, higher.
Oh
It
no. Because it's all
all
made of
just
that stuff.
is.
So how can it be?
Yeah.
Like you're making it into a hierarchy. Your ego is back. So once you
Yeah.
release that, you're just like, and this is the thing, like, I love this part of Zen practice actually, that they say, like, the more you meditate, the more you garden, right? It's like,
Expand.
ground yourself, move your body, be in the, like, gardening is like you're in the world, right? You're doing
Mm.
physical labor, you're pulling weeds out, you're with reality as it is in matter as you also do more sitting. It's like, I love that, like as you meditate more, move more, dance more, like it's, yeah, I believe in that deeply as well. So it really resonates with me, and it very much fits my philosophy, which is, I think, one of the reasons why we're also talking to each other, to be
I
honest as
think
well.
a lot of what you're saying, I'm like, there's a reason this dude's just out of nowhere just been like, hey, can we just get to know each other and share? Like, to me, that's not just coincidence. There's too many. Yeah. How can I share this person? I mean, I'd love to do some work with you in some way or shape or form. I am mindful of time, and
Yes.
I'm mindful of the innate experience is something that's quite big to you. Is there anything we're missing between? Because I think you said you went from the ayahuasca to the innate experience sort of developing.
No, to be honest, that was the beginning of Innate. That experience was like, okay, life is neither a dance nor a struggle, it is both. And I would like to I want to create a second home for people who remember that, or people who are on the path to remembering that. And
So tell us about this second home then for people.
yeah, I mean, so, really, the way I describe it now is a second home for those on the middle path, people who want to be thriving in modern life, who want to be active, who want to, take action in reality as it is, and who also want to live in more communal ways, doing practices that bring you into the present moment, whether it's dance, shaking, meditation, and in closer contact to nature and the wonders of nature and the mysteries of nature and the cycles of nature. And can we create a way of life? Because we can't travel back in time, and I don't think we want to do that either, right? We'd be terrible at it. I'd be terrible at hunter gathering. I'll tell you that for free. I'm too soft. But we do want to bring.
I'm dead.
I'm dinner on the first week. But I do want to bring back. There's a reason why it's called innate, and it's because our innate nature is one of bliss, of connection, of stillness on the inside, and I truly believe that it doesn't have to always be a struggle to get there. And people in our world have this mindset of, I need to heal, I need to struggle, I need to push, and it's like, yeah, you do, and don't forget to also load the dice in your favor. You can also go downhill, not uphill. Like if you're living by the forest, it's very easy to feel connection to nature. If you're doing a practice every day that's survived over 10 generations, it's got something healthy in it that can bring you towards the present moment. And if you're around a loving community who are also either on the path towards the initiation, this moment of initiation, or have had that moment of initiation and are looking to integrate it, it's much easier to live a life that's full of love and full of joy. So that's what I want to create with Innate. That's what I am creating. It's just, obviously, for me, it's very important that there's the action in modern life, that everything is rooted in action. Because words, they're nice to say, but talk is cheap. Like, everyone is love and light. Everyone's very honest.
Yeah,
so
everyone's
being
saying
honest,
the right shit.
right? But what if being honest means you get fired? How honest are you? What if telling the truth means that you're going to lose 6,000 euros? How honest are you then, right? And so I think action is a beautiful way
And then
to.
there's consequence to what you're saying, what you're doing.
There's always consequences to actions, right? That is the rules of the universe, which is what's so beautiful about it. It's very much karma yoga in a way, can your actions be the stage upon which you go on your own inner journey, right? The world is waiting almost. So yeah, that's kind of innate, creating a second home for those people on that middle path. I've been doing co-lives to begin, 1 month co-lives, meditation co-lives, yogic co-lives, breathwork co-lives, mostly in Portugal, in nature, but we do a few in other places of the world. And that's kind of been like an experiment to kind of kick things off.
Where else?
We've been to Sacred Valley in Peru. We went to rural Colombia. We also went to Bali, like the basic bitches that we are.
I know at least half my guests have been to Bali, and I've not, and I lived in Australia, so I need to go.
You don't need to go.
I'd like to go. No?
You don't need to go, man. It's full of Russians and full of Australians, and it's basically like going to Starbucks now. Like, it's not what it used to be.
Right, okay.
It's
not authentic coffee.
Oh, it's very far away from authentic. But, I guess it's still nice to go. It's like a spiritual Disneyland. As long as you're aware that that's what you're signing up for.
If you know you're going in with that, look, I'm not going to get too caught up in this.
Yeah, then you'll have a good time.
You'd have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I'll do it.
No, exactly. Yeah, as my judgmental side is back. See, I told you, I haven't got a long way to go, Michael. I've got a
See,
long
the
way to
thing
go.
is, though, like the judgment, like people say, are judgmental, and all these negative parts of us. Why do they exist? Why is it ubiquitous between the human race if it doesn't serve some sort of purpose? So maybe that judgment side is actually looking out for you in some way and wants to avoid that happening in your own innate experience retreats.
Yeah, yeah, true. I actually, that's fair. Something I say whenever someone says like, "Hey, this is a no judgment space," I'm like, "Okay, that means you're just hiding the judgment."
Yeah, bullshit.
Okay, sure, we
I'm
can play this
judging you
game.
for.
Yeah, like, but if I walked in here with a giant knife full of blood, you'd judge. Like, so, but I think it has good energy to be fair. But
Yeah, no, they're well-meaning, but it's like you said, it's that love and light. There is no darkness. There is. How can there be light then?
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't have one without the other.
no, that's true. It just creates big shadows, right? It creates big shadows,
Exactly.
and people do the wrong stuff. And it's better just own your. A phrase that I like to say is, "Do not pretend to be holier than you are.
Mm,
You're fine where you are." Like we're all
mm.
trying, we're all doing our best. And we'll
That's when
get
it's
fuck
changed
up.
for me because I wanted to teach people meditation, and I'm a Manchester party boy from back in the day, and I've got this colloquial way of speaking, and it was like I was almost trying to be this Yoda, Alan Watts, Ramdas
Mm,
character, but that's not me. And the people who that is are doing it better because it's them.
yeah,
So rather than trying to be holier than thou, like I am a bit rough around the edges, but use that to my advantage. I like comedy. I like being a bit more relatable. So rather than
mm,
scared of sort of not sort of like not ostracizing, but pushing away certain people, just realizing that they weren't the people who would resonate with your other message, and someone else might be saying the same message in a different way. They might be Harry from Innate Experience. Let Harry be Harry. Let you be
yeah.
you.
I fully agree. And no one's path is the same as anyone else's. The path that Buddha took to go to where he went is not the path. If you follow his path exactly, you're not going to go there because you have your own
Mm.
path. You have your own set of samsaras, your own set of, attachments and your own way of getting there. And then another
Yeah.
question is where even is there? That's a whole other,
Yeah, that's
fuckload,
the thing. We're all
man.
trying to get there. Where is there?
Yeah, there is here. So what are we talking about now? So,
There is only now.
yeah, right. So it's once I definitely agree with that. Just have
Well,
fun.
Alan Wett says it great. He says it's not about the last step of the dance, the last note of the song, is it? You're not waiting for that last step. Finally, we got to that last step.
Exactly. I agree with that. Yeah, I remember that talk is a very good talk. I mean, as much as I want to be my own person, do things my own way, I've got to say,
Yeah.
oh wow, the way he talks sometimes as a fellow storyteller, when I listen to him talk, I'm just like,
Mm,
wow, what a way with words, and
yeah.
energy. But
Well,
yeah,
I've got this thing where you have a dream team, so they can be alive, they can be fictional, or they can be dead. But people who are like, if you could imagine sitting down at a meeting table with these people, I've got like Buddha,
obviously.
Alan Watts, I've got Ray Dalio for the business and finance. So it's like really like the elite people, and then you learn as much about them as you can, and then they start coming through giving you actual
Mm,
advice. You know they're just parts of yourself, but you've created them in a way. One of them's Alan Watts. Because, like, having my G just sat there saying, Michael, in the voice he says it in.
Michael,
Yeah, exactly.
one must let
So
go.
I think that'd be a good one because it's like, it might be like a nighttime thing. Like, just before you go to sleep, you have a little meeting with these guys and then or girls, and then you go to sleep.
Little check-in.
But I'll
Love.
let you know how it goes. I haven't started yet.
Yeah. I'm curious. If I see
I'm
you
still
like
creating the team. That's what it is. I've got
Steve,
about 3 or 4. I was thinking David Attenborough, but I think that's just because I like the way he says so.
Steve Irwin.
Could be.
Steve Irwin's a fucking dude. The way he
Yeah,
looks at
man.
wildlife. But
Definitely. Yeah. Anyway, we're digressing. Let's speak
sorry.
about an innate experience. Is there what sort of stuff are people doing on this? Then is it just meditation?
No, so meditative practices is the way I describe it. But
Okay.
yeah, so the simple premise is, can we create a more fulfilling way of life for
Mm,
people on the middle path? Like, where we're able to do a practice that brings us into the present moment, where we're able to live close to nature, where we're able to live communally while still thriving in this modern dystopia that we live in. And
mm,
that's the open question. I don't have the answers. The company's built in an open energy to see where that question takes us. And the co-living experiences we do 1 month long have been amazing containers. We've done some silent retreats. Our silent retreats are quite unique because they're quite playful. So it's not a Vipassana, and that's not to say we're
Right.
better or worse than one. It's just, it's a different kind of energy. 4 or 5 days in silence, but then we're doing ecstatic dances, we're doing kirtans, we're doing vision boards. So it's a bit of a different style of silent retreat from what
Yeah, I
we
like
normally have.
that.
It's a bit more wriggly, a bit more playful. We did a gathering of 100 people, fully co-created in the forests. That was amazing last week. So we're kind of becoming an ecosystem now. We have a few hundred people in this community of modern day seekers, which is really exciting. It feels like, we have momentum with this group. And we're going to build a physical representation. So we're going to build a campus, the Innate campus,
Okay.
big one, will be a physical second home for those on the middle path, which I'm really excited about. We're going to build it in Portugal. And I call it a campus on purpose because it's not a place to go and escape reality. It's a place to go to experience this different way of life, to remember your innate being and then leave and then come back whenever you need to reintegrate that journey, which is why I call it campus. So
And
yeah,
it's definitely not a cult.
oh, do you know what? People say that all the time to me, and I'm like, look,
Everyone's thinking it.
I'd love to build one, but we just seem to be doing a shit job of it. There's no blood sacrifices, there's no matching dress codes, and also like everyone goes home after a month. I always have this joke that like someone's like,
yeah.
I'm hoping it's a real cult, and then at the end we'll go home and they're like, oh, everyone's actually gone home. What? I thought this is when the temple nights begin.
Now, if you really want to go to your true home, take this drink.
Exactly. Now the real co-live begins, guys. Come down this tunnel.
But no, it makes me laugh because it's almost like these side communities, we might call them, that are broken away from the conventional way. People straight away, that's met with suspicion. And that's why I wanted to actually bring it up. I don't know if you're aware of Aubrey Marcus.
Not too much.
Go check him out.
of
He's pretty cool, and he's done an actual documentary called Anti-Cult because everyone's saying this is a cult, and it's like we're telling you all to go. We're telling you all to go and find
Yeah.
your own unique way of expressing.
That's the thing about what I'm trying to do with the campus is like remember your innate being and then go. Like, we are not your answer. You are your own answer. And
The cult won't take off with that
I'll
kind
do
of
so.
talk.
Huh?
The cult won't take off with that kind of talk.
Yeah, I've got to switch my rhetoric. But yeah, also I think there are cults out there, so it's important to acknowledge that and to be aware. What one of my favorite teachers said, Matthew Immergat, he's came on our co-live last year to teach meditation. He's also the co-author of The Mind Illuminated. And he said, don't let the fear of cults stop you from exploring alternative communities and ways of life. Because it's also a fear reaction and a way of boxing yourself in, right? It's a way of you not finding out who you really are. And acknowledge that cults do exist and there are dark intentions in some of these spaces. Simply remain discerning. Always be discerning. Whatever you're doing, throw yourself fully into it, but just have a spark of yourself that's just keeping an eye. And I think that's a good approach to have, including to myself. And honestly, like one of my biggest struggles has been growing into a place of leadership with Innate as the community grows, and dealing with my fear that I'll basically become my father, dealing with my fear that I'll be, use this increasing leadership role and increasing power in a way that's selfish and harmful to others. And one of the big parts for me has been like, don't doubt yourself so much. And also a way of stay discerning, surround yourself with people who will tease you. Actually, my team teases me possibly too much, but I have people around me also who can tell me the truth and tease me. And like, it's like, yeah, right now I feel very grounded, but yeah, I mean, I can see how leaders in these kind of spaces start with the energy I have and then go off track. Like I can really see it because I had 100-person gathering. On the last day, though, everyone was coming up to me saying, thank you, this has changed my life. And I'm like, oh, I can see how this can be a danger. It's very important to surround yourself with people who can actually slice through.
Keep you just humble, keep you on the straight and narrow. And even the kings used to have a jester when they used to think they were too big and they need to be humbled and be like, look.
Yeah. And that's also an act of humility. It's also an act of wisdom to recognize you don't have to do everything by yourself. Right? Including this. Like that you can have friends around you can have brothers, you can have sisters around you you can help each other out. Like in a men's work retreat I went to, we would call it dark arrows. You can send someone a dark arrow. You always connect to a place of love first, make sure they're ready to receive, and then you just can call them out on something. Like, hey,
Yeah.
that joke you told was funny the first 2 days, but then you kept doing it, and it started hurting me.
No, I like that.
Check in on
That's where the real connections are made, where it's out of love, but it's also honest, and it's willing to have the awkward conversation so you can both grow together. I want to be one of those people that helps support you. So how can people find yourselves? You just tell the people, and then we can and get people to this lovely innate experience.
Yeah, feel free to. So on Instagram is the best way. Just look up innate_experiences. Innate is spelled INNATE. So innate_experiences on Instagram. You can also just type in innate.global on your browser. That will take you to our website. Those are the two best ways to see what we're doing. Like, you can just sign up to our newsletter, follow us on Instagram. We still have our month-long co-lives. We have these playful silent retreats as well. And we'll be building towards the campus more and more. So, we're looking to help us out with that.
Let me know how.
Yeah.
Let me know how, mate. Because I'm already sold, man. Like, it sounds brilliant. It's the sort of thing.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to have
it already is.
Dude, we're going to have a long stay. The plan is I'll say quickly. I don't want to get too excited and go off too much, but we're going to have a short stay area where people can come for retreats, for gatherings, for shorter stuff. And then ideally a river in the middle. And on the other side, the long stay area for people to staying 1 to 6 months, right? So there's a protection between those two spaces. So you can have the retreats that are more playful, less selective, and then the long stay area. People cannot stay more than 6 months of the year. Very important. Second home, not primary home. And then ideally we have a yin space and a yang space. And the yin space would have a shala for practice, a silent Zen library for silence and contemplation and reading, and a ceremonies yurt, which we're going to leave unexplained up a hill. It's just going to be there. And then the yang space will have a co-work space, a maker's area for people who want to make things with their hands, like sculptors or artists, and a gym dojo for working out, lifting weights, martial arts, which I think is really under-respected in the spiritual world.
Kind of work. Definitely something that needs to not be forgotten, that we are in physical bodies.
And sometimes, honestly, just lifting up something really heavy is the best thing you can do for your mental state. Not even, sometimes the best way to prepare for meditation is just go, just find the heavy spot, squat that 30 times, see how loud your mind is after that, So that's kind of what we want to create. And if we can create that campus surrounded by and lease out the land surrounding us to complementary activities like permaculture farms, organic cafes, even psychedelics retreats to the neighboring land, so we can create a nourishing ecosystem, that would be the absolute dream. So, but that's the idea, this kind of yin yang energy, the long stay, short stay, and just create a place where people can come and just live on the middle path for a little bit, without taking it all too seriously.
Well, I can think of some fantastic people for it as well, who would love to attend and also who could offer something to the space. So we'll stay in touch.
Yes.
I always like to give the guest a chance to just leave us with a final something. So is there a final message you'd like to leave with the listeners, the viewers?
I think do a practice every day that brings you towards the present moment. Be kind to yourself on the journey, and don't take it all too seriously. I think that'll sum up all of it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Harry, and giving us your time. I know you probably got a million other things you could be doing, but I appreciate you just taking the time to share your story with myself and the listeners. Yeah, man. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you asking me questions, listening so wonderfully, and inviting me onto your show. So much love and much appreciation. I could tell by the call, because we did like a little screening call, because usually I'm reaching out to the guest or I've already got a relationship with the guest. And for this one, just make sure he's not a serial killer first. And I was 50% sure you weren't. So I thought, we'll get him on. But I'm so happy to... Sarcasm for people who haven't got that radar. But, they're listening at this stage and they didn't pick up on that, we're in trouble. I know, yeah. That's the one thing that they got. But so he's a serial killer cult leader. So much of what you're doing resonates so deeply with my purpose. My purpose is to learn what alleviates my own suffering so I can show others how to do it. We can all just live more peacefully. And that seems like you're on the same path. So thank you for doing the work you're doing. We'll also put a link with it in the description with any way we can of people finding you. Otherwise, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for those who stayed till the end. Peace and love, guys.
Can you see why I liked him enough just to get him on the show without ever even meeting the man? Because isn't he just lovely? And those retreat spaces he's invited me down, and I think I'm going to have to go check out the one in Portugal because it's my cup of tea. It's definitely my cup of tea. So if it's Harry's your cup of tea as well, and Innate Experiences, you want to find out more what they're about, I'll put all the details from in the description, and then I'll put anything for myself, meditation with Michael, and if you're wanting to find out what Transmute's getting up to, I've got a dance, I've got a floating meditation journey, but there's also loads more. It's not just me at Transmute Studio, so I'll put a link for them in the description as well. Now, the next episode will be coming up, episode 4. This one's with, I did know this person. I got Craig Seaton, you'll remember from season 1, episode 2. He took me to a power yoga, with Imelda, and it was just ridiculously, like, it was the next level. And she's somebody that I just see getting herself into positions that I don't even know how a human being can get like that. I'm not the most flexible, but she is the opposite end. I'm that end, she's that end. So the episode of Imelda is really interesting because Imelda, she's wanting to help with a bit of magic, a bit of heart healing through yoga practices, through energetic alignment. She'll do that through one-to-one sessions, through immersive retreats, or even just through many studios that she's worked in. She's spread across all Manchester and Cheshire. There's even actually an immersive retreat coming up. I think it's Meet Your Heart. That's in Wales in 2025. So it'll be April, May time. So I'll put a link for all that in Imelda's episode. So she even has like a weird touch of like being involved in the pharmaceutical industry. So it's good to have somebody who's that sensible, that wise, that in touch with the other aspects of life, who's going to be deciding what's going on in the old pharma industry because it's got a bad rap. But for now, go check out Harry. He's funny. We're even thinking about maybe doing a little spin-off like Who on Earth Uncensored, Who on Earth Meets the Edge, something like that, where me and Harry just talk about different topics. So if that's something you'd be interested in as well, me and Harry just talking about the topics that, people aren't willing to necessarily put the toe in them waters. And if you guys could please give the show a bit of a like, not a bit of a like, a full like would be great. Comments, like I said, any shares that you can use to help the show grow, and you want to let them know about Harry and Innate Experiences, more than appreciated. But for now, guys, peace and love.